Hello, and welcome to Chin Hairs and F-Bombs Conversations with Girlfriends. This is your gal pal Sal, also known as SallyAnn Gray. And today I have my lovely friend,
Oh,
Emily. Yay. Hi, Emily.
hi.
So if you've listened to the pod before, you know Emily. She's been on twice before, so she is a repeat offender for sure. Today, Emily and I are going to talk about direct primary care. What the hell is that? We'll tell you, but it's related to healthcare. So we'll get into that. But first, let me just explain what this podcast is in case you haven't listened before, which would be really interesting if this is your first episode. And if it is, hi, welcome. Chin Hairs and F-Bombs is an opportunity for me to sit down with one of my girlfriends and talk about something that we find really important. And really, this is born out of real conversations that we really have had. Every conversation that we've had on this podcast, we have had in real life. And every time I sit down with a friend and share and talk about something that's important to me or weighing on me and in my heart and on my mind, I always feel better. I always feel lighter.
Yeah.
I always feel seen. I always walk away smarter because my girlfriends are smart. And when we share with each other, it just makes everything easier. So I wanted to share that with the world because also we're really smart and we have some good ideas.
So
And
I think that part of it is that when we share, we feel lighter and we have quite literally shared our burden with someone else, whatever that may be. Maybe it's about parenting, or maybe it's about relationships, or maybe it's about health problems or health concerns or health frustrations. And yeah, we feel lighter. There's probably a study out there, or maybe several studies out there that talk about how it is good for your health to share your burdens.
well, and the alternative is like suffering in silence, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I suffer in silence, I convince myself that I'm the only person
Yes.
on earth who's ever felt this way.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm the weirdo. I'm broken. Everybody else has this figured out.
Yes.
And none of that is true.
No.
No. And the more that I talk to my trusted friends and share what's really going on, the more I know that I am not a little weirdo, that we are all in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks. And yeah, that's why we do this. So that's about the podcast. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about direct primary care. And that's a healthcare model that I learned about a few years ago. You know, I used to have a regular doctor and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so made some changes. So Emily and I have similar yet different paths as always. So we're going to share our experiences. So we'll do that. But let's introduce ourselves. So I mentioned I'm SallyAnn Gray. Hi, nice to meet you if we haven't met. I live in Maine. I'm a Midwestern gal. I am a writer and a mother, and I'm working on my memoir right now. I have a lot of exciting projects, but one of my most exciting projects right now is the memoir I'm working on. And I hope to be sharing more information about that with people soon as I figure out how to talk about it.
Yay.
Yeah. So that's who I am. Emily, who are you?
I'm Emily and I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm a kindergarten teacher and I have an amazing husband and two amazing boys who are 12 and a half and 10 and a half.
So Emily and I have known each other since college, and we met working at the library together because we're a couple of nerds.
Yes.
What a wonderful place that library was.
Amazing.
At Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple.
The Little Apple.
Yeah. So we met in college and just fell head over heels in love with each other.
Yes, 100%.
In our old age, we're going to buy houses right next to each other,
Yes.
and they're going to have a hamster tunnel
Yeah.
between the two.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's going to be great.
And we'll bring each other pie and stuff like that.
Oh, yes, please. Yes. All right. Well, let's just talk about direct primary care. I'm going to set the stage. I'm going to tell our listeners about what direct primary care is, because it is a really different concept for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And it is a newer concept too, even though to me it harkens back to before times.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. An older
Yeah.
model.
Yeah. Yeah. So direct primary care, DPC, is a healthcare model. Patients pay a monthly fee directly to the doctor for primary care services. And so these providers, they don't accept insurance.
Right.
And they don't participate in government programs like Medicare, Medicaid. And so that's the big difference between a primary care physician and a direct care physician is just that insurance piece of it. So it's a membership fee. Typically it's a monthly or it's an annual fee. It's somewhere between $50 to $150 per person. Maybe you can have a family fee. So my entire family sees our direct care physician. And in terms of the services they provide, it's really just like a primary care physician. Like you got a cold, you have a wart, the things that you go to your typical doctor for, that's what you would go to this person for. And also the focus is on preventative care, which theoretically primary care physicians, that should be their focus too.
Yeah.
That is not my personal experience. So that's an overview of what it is. The direct part of direct primary care is you pay the doctor directly and they work with you directly, as in you have access to them directly. I can call, text, email my doctor. Like I'm not talking to a nurse. There's not like a phone tree. Like it really is direct. And this is important too. There are no copays. So with a lot of typical insurance and typical primary care, you pay a copay every time you go to the doctor. And with direct primary care, you have unlimited visits. You can go to the doctor as many times as you need in a month, and you pay that same price every month to have that unlimited access. So to me, what it really means is that direct care is quality over quantity.
Yes.
That's the difference. I was doing research in advance of this podcast. A traditional primary care doctor has over 2,000 patients. A direct primary care physician has around 500.
Yeah.
So it is so much more personal. The biggest difference to me in the care that I'm receiving now is that I get a full hour with my doctor.
Yes.
So I have had the old model. I have had a primary care physician. I would get 5, maybe 10 minutes with the doctor to talk about whatever the thing is that's bothering me. And it would be one thing that was bothering me. And you better talk fast, man. You better not forget anything that you wanted to tell them. Did you bring notes?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And instead, I have an entire hour with this doctor, and I don't have to talk about a single thing that's bothering me. I can talk about a bunch of things that are bothering me, which means they're caring for your whole person instead of just slapping a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Like that's what American medicine feels like. It is not preventative care. It's just Band-Aids over bullet holes. People are not getting the care that they need. So what else do I have to say about direct primary care? A good question people often have about it is, can I see a specialist? What happens if I need to see a specialist? You want to see a dermatologist, or you need to go further, you need to see an ENT. Your doctor can refer you to a specialist, and you can see any doctor that you want. And you should have insurance that covers that. So in my case, we have a high deductible health insurance plan, and I can see any specialist that I need to see. It covers hospital visits and anything that might happen to my human body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's generally about a direct primary care. Emily, what didn't I say that you feel like is important about this?
One of the things that when I spoke to my direct primary care provider a few months ago about this, she was actually expressing her own frustration with the system, with the traditional system, particularly with working with insurance companies and the pressure to see as many patients as possible. And she, as a doctor, I mean, she went to school for a long time to do this. And she's like, I don't want to just be seeing my patients for 5 minutes at a time and in and out the door. And then I'm on to the next person and spending more time on paperwork than I am spending with people. She's like, I want to make a connection with people so that I know these people better and I know their health history more intimately. And I can really then help them better. And I thought that that was really interesting because as much frustration as I felt with the kind of traditional system, doctors clearly are feeling the same frustration.
Our doctor said the same thing. And that is why there's been this burgeoning industry of this direct care. There's been a lot of them pop up in Portland, Maine. And it is because the doctors themselves are frustrated with how they are hamstrung by the insurance companies.
Yes.
And mental health professionals have already figured out how awful it is to work with the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And so many therapists don't take insurance any longer.
Right.
And it's a shame. And I do not blame them because insurance isn't helping make us well.
Right.
It is not intended for that. Insurance is a numbers game and it's a for-profit industry. And our doctor said the same thing about going to school to help people and to see people, not to spend all their time in admin and chart work and insurance and all of that yucky stuff.
Right.
That nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
And to instead be able to see people and help people.
Yeah. Well, and recently my mother-in-law was telling me that, and she doesn't go to the doctor very often. She doesn't have a need for it, but she went to the doctor and the doctor said, okay, so, what medication are you on? And my mother-in-law said, I'm not taking any medication. And the doctor said, what, nothing? You're not on anything? And she said, no, I'm not on anything. And there was a lot of back and forth on that. The doctor was, not believing her, honestly, in the first place. But then second of all, it was just like a routine checkup, like a physical or whatever. And towards the end of it, the doctor was getting a little agitated. And she said, I can't let you leave here without prescribing something.
They said that?
Yes. And my mother-in-law was like, I don't need anything. And she's like, I literally cannot let you go without doing something.
That's a very strange
thing. That's so strange. And so my mother-in-law wound up getting, I think, the shingles vaccine or something like that. It was something that in her age range, it's definitely available and it's probably a good idea. But the idea that she literally couldn't let my mother-in-law go without some kind of intervention.
Oh my gosh, that is
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
And scary.
And a little scary, right? But that's what I've heard that many times before, that insurance companies require, first of all, that you jump through these various hoops, but then also that you have to say these certain things. You have to check these certain boxes. Yeah. It's gross.
Ew.
Yeah.
No, I do not care for that. Yikes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's talk about why we switched.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Sure. So I'm prone to yeast infections, which is frustrating enough, but trying to actually get in to see my previous doctor was very challenging because they book out so far in advance. And like when you're dealing with a yeast infection, like TikTok, the clock is
Mhm.
ticking, you're uncomfortable. But then even when I got an appointment, I struggled to get them to actually listen to me and what I was saying about my body. So the most recent time, and this has been like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe, I went in 100% sure that I had a yeast infection. I've had enough of them to know what the early signs are. And the PA, the physician assistant who saw me, wasn't convinced. She thought that it was BV, bacterial vaginosis, which is more serious. She ran both of the tests, but since it was a Friday, the results weren't going to be in until Monday. So she wrote a prescription for the BV meds, the bacterial vaginosis meds, because she was so sure that that's what it was. She would not write one for diflucan for the yeast. So I spent the weekend miserable, only to find out on Monday that she was wrong and I was right. And thank goodness I never actually filled the BV prescription because, first of all, you have to take all of them. It's an antibiotic. And second of all, you have to be really careful what you ingest or what you put your body into contact with, because a lot of things will make you vomit when you're on these BV meds. I can't remember what it's called, but like you can't even use nail polish remover. You can't use mouthwash. You can't do all these. You cannot drink alcohol. Not that I'm a big drinker. You can't do any of these things because it will make you really, really sick.
Oh my
So I
God.
never actually, filled that prescription. And then,
That's a terrible
yeah,
story.
it's really awful. So another time, actually, I think this was the only time I ever saw the actual doctor, which whatever, like they're busy, they got a lot of patients. I understand. I'm not going to be snooty about this. But the one time I actually got to see the doctor, I wanted to talk to her about something that was going on with me at the time, which was that my sex drive was really, really low. And at the time, I just felt so embarrassed about it. I was very sensitive about it. My kids were really young at the time, and I was just perpetually tired and touched out and really desperate to find some solution. And so I went to her, this stranger, because I'd never really seen her before. And when I described to her what was going on, her reaction was, "Have you tried date night?" And like, no, you fucking asshole. You've got the bedside manner of a plank of wood. I can't afford to both hire a sitter and go out with my husband. And I sure as shit can't do that often enough to reestablish a connection with my husband. And I think that maybe had
Wow.
she had more time, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe had she had more time, she could have been a little bit, first of all, just a little bit more sensitive about it and a little bit more thorough about like, this is really about reestablishing that connection with your husband. You've gone through this thing of having two kids quite quickly. Our kids are just not even 2 years apart in age. They were very challenging babies. And I think that if she had taken the time to say, be intentional about reestablishing that connection with your husband, take the time, even little moments during the day of connecting, talking with one another, and being really clear about what your needs are and asking, what his needs are. All of these things that my husband and I ultimately figured out, thank goodness. But at that time, I was just drowning. I was drowning in that moment of having two very, very young kids and not feeling a connection with my husband and feeling touched out and all of the things. And I wanted somebody to help me. And she utterly did not. And so I just felt really unseen there. And so I tried looking for a new doctor for years. I asked every friend for recommendations. I followed up on every name I got, and nobody was taking new clients. And so I resorted to, on the one hand, for my yeast infections, treating all my yeast infections homeopathically, because over-the-counter stuff does not work for me. And another thing I did was just not going to the doctor when I was sick.
Exactly.
I would
Yep.
use like urgent care or like the CVS Minute Clinic when I absolutely needed medical care.
Yep.
and paying for those out of pocket because I just couldn't get in to see my doctor and also didn't really want to get in to see my doctor. So that's
They
why.
weren't helping you.
Yeah, no, they weren't. They weren't doing anything for me really.
Wow.
So that's why I switched.
My story is similar yet different. I had a doctor. I had been seeing her for years.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say seeing her, I would see anybody if they could get me an appointment.
Sure.
So I saw her like once a year at my annual physical that I could actually see her.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to go in for something else acute, I would see literally anyone. And I thought that was a benefit of going to a big practice was
Right.
like, you can see someone.
Yeah.
I was like, well, okay, I can see someone. But there was no continuity of care there. But I was like, okay, well, if I can get in, I'll get in with anybody. Who is it? Is it the janitor? Sure, set me up. I don't care. What's his name? Tom? Great. Hi, Tom. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So had a doctor, and we all went to this big practice. Like in Portland, Maine, there's almost everybody I know, there's two places that you go. You go to Martin's Point or you go to Intermed.
Okay.
Really? Yeah. So these are these two big primary care practices that have, each of them have 100 doctors and hundreds of employees. And that's what most of us with insurance do for primary care. And so we picked one of them. I'm not going to say which one I went to, but so there was no continuity of care. It was hard to get in. If you had to, you could get in. But my experience is why I was like over it, just all the way over it. Well, I had a very bad experience where I didn't have a psychiatrist at the time, and I was taking an antidepressant and it stopped working. And I had been on this antidepressant for years, and so I was getting it refilled through my primary care, and it was just whatever. It's a maintenance medicine, and it's set it and forget it sort of idea, but it stopped working. And I was in a really bad place. And so I call my doctor's office and I say, hey, I need a new antidepressant and I need it now. And they said, okay, we can set you up with like a PA that, and I don't even know if she specialized in mental health. Frankly, I do not know. And I went to the appointment and I sat down and I like told her I've been on antidepressants since I was 16. These are the different drugs that I've been on. This one isn't working. And I'm just like begging for help. And she looked at me and she said, so what do you want to take?
Huh.
Oh, yeah. And I thought, oh God.
Yeah.
Oh no. I am not qualified for this. And apparently you're not either. It was horrifying. And then you know what happened? We picked something together and hey, surprise, it didn't fucking work.
Oh my God.
And 4 weeks later, I was a mess. And then I had to get a psychiatrist and I needed one, and that's fine. That was dangerous what happened there.
Yeah.
She was not qualified for what I needed. And I got to a really bad and dangerous place because of it.
Wow.
So that's scary. Yeah. And that's not it. That's not all. So every year I would see my actual doctor for my physical. And 3-4 years ago, I started talking to her about perimenopause.
I remember this.
And I was like, hey, and at that time, I didn't have that much knowledge about perimenopause. I wanted to talk to her about it. And she was like, yeah, you're about that age. That was it. That was the first conversation. That was the beginning, middle, and end of that first conversation. She didn't share any information with me about perimenopause, what to expect. She didn't ask any further questions about my symptoms or issues, and gave me no further information to take with. 1 year later, I'm back with her I have more information about perimenopause and way more symptoms. And I was probably 41 at the time. And I said, hey, and I was way more prepared this time since I got nothing the year before, had my list in front of me and told her what my symptoms were. And she's like, sucks, doesn't it?
Dude.
That was it. That was the beginning and middle and end of that conversation. Sucks, don't it?
Oh my God.
Yeah. She did not have any interest in, I don't know, labs, anything.
Right.
Medical history, maternal medical history, anything. I was shocked. I was like, well, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Neat. Look at me. I got to be my own doctor again. And so that was nail in the coffin for me. I was just like, well, this sucks. And to your point, I lost so much trust in everyone in that building, between that nurse practitioner who couldn't help me with my mental health and my doctor whom I had been seeing for 8 years, who didn't give a shit about perimenopause.
Yeah.
And it was a woman and just wanted me to suck it up, buttercup. I lost so much trust in them giving a fuck about me that I tried not to go to the doctor.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Those things in your life that you're like, it's better if I don't touch it. It's like, there are certain things, if I don't hear from them, that's good news.
Yeah.
You don't hear from the principal of your school. You don't want to hear from your tax accountant, insurance, car mechanic. There are certain things I do not want to talk to you. And that was the doctor. It was like, if I don't have to deal with them, the better off I am.
Yeah.
And also so mad that the most I heard from their office was bills.
Yes.
They were always like, hey, bitch, you got a bill due. I'm like, why don't you calm down? I saw you yesterday. Why don't you follow up with me about how I'm doing and not my wallet?
Right.
Oh,
right.
I was so over them. And I didn't know what to do otherwise.
Right.
I didn't, because we all went there. We all went to this facility. My husband and 2 kids all went there. So I started asking people who might know, medical professionals, like, is there a pediatrician? What do I do? I really didn't know like how to switch out.
Yeah.
It really, to me, looked like I had 2 options and they were both bad. And then, so my husband and I work for ourselves. So the insurance that we get is through the marketplace. And that's a whole fucking thing.
Yes.
That's exciting and terrible. Anyway, and so it was that time of year again to look at insurance and figure out what kind of insurance we would get. And he was researching this insurance that was focused on direct primary care. And both of us were like, what is this? Is this a real thing?
Yeah.
Is this bullshit? Is this a good idea, bad idea? I've never heard of it. And he did a lot of due diligence. He did a lot of research into it. He talked to other people. Do you know what this is? Talked to a peer whose son is actually a direct care physician. And so learned that real people are really doing this. It's not just like something the internet invented. I don't know. Are you doxing me? What is this? And took a leap of faith. But before we signed up for this insurance, that was like, the insurance itself, seriously, is you see a direct care physician. And as much as I've said that direct primary care doesn't work with insurance, this weird insurance that we have, they pay that monthly fee.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead of us mailing a check, just kidding, it's the future, we don't mail checks, but instead of me mailing a check to my doctor for this monthly membership fee, my insurance company does it.
Yeah.
She still doesn't have to deal with insurance. But anyway, and so that's how we found out what it was. And we took this leap and we interviewed who ended up being our doctor. We interviewed her before we even signed up for the insurance. And we were like, hi, who are you? What are you? What is this? What are we doing? What's going on? Mm-hmm. And she was a fucking delight, an amazing, like, rainbow of a person, smart, savvy, kind, thoughtful, caring. So we did it, and we all started seeing her, and it has been wonderful.
Yeah.
And the first time that I saw her as a patient, she asked me something I've never been asked by a medical professional before. She said, "What are your health goals?"
Wow. Yeah.
I was blown over. I had no answer. I said, "No one's ever asked me that before. I've literally never thought of that before."
Yeah.
We spent, frankly, 2 hours together doing an intake to talk about who the hell I am.
Yeah.
And that was another interesting thing too. It wasn't just I have an elbow. It wasn't about my physical person, just my physical body.
Yeah.
It was about what makes me tick, what lights me up.
Mhm.
She knows that mental health is deeply tied to physical health.
Mhm.
So even though I have my mental health providers and I have a therapist and I have a psychiatrist, she knows all of that. Those are not things that are not touchy.
Right.
And was just, it's day and night experience that I am having with my direct care physician versus that traditional model of a PCP.
Mhm. Mhm.
Day and night.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Talk about your experience with your new doctor.
Yeah. So you were actually the one who told me about the existence of direct care physicians maybe a year ago. I really don't remember when this was. I do remember it was on one of our normal like Sunday chats. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Tell me more. And I researched and I found two in my town and I followed up with one of them. Her website actually said that she was not taking new clients. But I went ahead, I don't even know remember what made me do it, but I went ahead and sent an email anyway. I think I just wanted to be like put on the list, on the waiting list of if you ever open up again, let me know. And fortunately for me, she responded to my email. She did, not a nurse, not a secretary, not anything. It's just her. She responded to my email and we had this really extensive email thread. I explained my history, I explained what I needed, and she took me on as a client. And it's been really amazing. I've been physically in her office a couple of times. And again, each appointment has lasted at least an hour. Really thorough. I never feel rushed. I feel like all my questions get answered. I feel like she legit cares about me. But basically, her policy is that she doesn't see sick people in person because she doesn't
Oh,
bring the illness into her office where she is seeing. I mean, she's got a lot of elderly clients. She doesn't want other people getting sick from being in her office. She has a ton of experience with telemedicine. When she lived in Minnesota, she was a telemedicine doctor. And so she can treat most everything with text messages, phone calls, emails, whatever. And I'm just going to use yeast infections as an example. So when I get a yeast infection, I text her to let her know. She asks about my symptoms and we maybe go back and forth. And then she calls in a prescription for diflucan. And that alone for me is worth the price of admission. Like it's transformative.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I remember.
That's the care that you need.
Yeah, exactly. I had a really persistent sore throat back in the spring. And part of me was like, oh gosh, I don't want to bother her. It's probably nothing. And I was like, you know what? F that. I want to know if is it strep? Is it like, what is it? Because I got strep throat early on in the pandemic. I didn't know how I got it because we were going literally nowhere. We were seeing nobody, but I got strep throat. And the reason I found out is because I was in so much pain. I went to urgent care and the doctor came in like a full hazmat suit to check me out. They did a COVID test. It was negative. So they did a strep test. And he was like, yeah, you have strep. I was like, how is this possible? I don't go anywhere. And well, strep is a lot more contagious than something like COVID. Like you could have literally gotten it on your mail. My point is that back in spring when I had a sore throat, I was like, let's nip this in the butt if it's strep. And I literally sent her pictures of my throat. And she's like, okay, so this is what it looks like. It doesn't have the real hallmarks of strep. I think it's probably just a postnasal drip. Maybe you have an upper respiratory infection that is not related to strep. Here's what I would do. And she laid out a plan of care for me. And she said, if you're not feeling better by whenever it was, then give me a call. I actually didn't give her a call. She reached out to me and was like, hey, how's it going? Are you feeling better? Hello. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for caring enough about me to remember that this was going on and that it sucked and that I needed help. But I love that. I love that I don't have to. I mean, part of what I love, honestly, like I can get in to see her, obviously. Like I can totally get in to see her, and that's great. That's super easy. But I love that if I'm feeling unwell, I'm not waiting for weeks on end, at which point I would probably feel better anyway to get in and see a doctor. I'm getting care.
Or you'd feel worse because you waited too long.
Right, exactly. I'm getting care right away. And that's so worth it. I love it.
I'm glad you're having such a great experience.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so many of us are used to avoiding the doctor because of the hassle, because it feels not worth it. And when we start actually taking care of ourselves, we're so much healthier.
Yeah.
And to remove all of that friction of it takes too long to get an appointment. The phone tree sucks ass and I'm going to be on the phone for 15 minutes. I'm not going to see someone who's qualified. I don't know this person at
Right.
all. They're not fucking listening to me,
Yeah.
even though I know my body better than anybody.
Yeah.
You take out all that friction and instead you're actually getting someone who can help you.
Yeah.
It's really sad that we're here.
Yes.
I'm glad there's an alternative.
For sure. And an amazing alternative. Not like it's an alternative, but it kind of sucks. But it's an amazing alternative. And by the way, like, I've had that experience of, just in case anybody thinks, oh, well, like that one doctor was probably just a shitty doctor or not listening to you or whatever. I've had that experience at multiple different practices in town and where we used to live in Florida, of people just not listening, like women in particular, not listening to me and what is going on with my female body.
I'm sorry, women not listening to you?
Fascinating. It's fascinating. I had this pain at one point. Gosh, was I pregnant at the time? I don't remember if I was pregnant or trying to become pregnant. And I had this pain and I was like, dude, that is a cyst. Like I could tell, I could tell that I had a cyst on one of my ovaries. And I finally got in to see this doctor and she said, it is not possible that you could feel that for yourself. And she went prodding around and she did an ultrasound and she was like, holy shit, you have a cyst on one of your ovaries. No joke. Really? Gosh, do I?
That's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
That is so upsetting.
Yeah.
I continue to be surprised by women not listening to women.
Yes. Yeah. Which then feeds into that narrative of women are just too sensitive. Women are just too hysterical. Women are just whatever. The narrative that is, as old as time.
That we internalize.
For sure.
Because we don't want to be part of that narrative.
Right.
And so when we don't seek care or speak up.
Yeah.
In fear of perpetrating that false narrative.
Yeah.
And then getting sicker ourselves.
Yes.
Oh, I'm mad now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you are.
Okay. So the two big healthcare providers in Portland, I have had not great experiences. Not terrible, but enough that I didn't want to go there anymore. I didn't want to do that anymore. It wasn't working for me. But truly, in the last 3 years, I know of 2 families who, because of the care at these facilities, had misdiagnoses that continued.
Yeah.
2 families. The result was death in one case, and the result was amputation in the other.
Holy shit.
I'm serious. To be misdiagnosed and then to continue with the misdiagnosis. And in one case, it was them certain that it was pneumonia when it was actually COVID. And then the woman ended up dying. She was treated for the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they had if they had checked for COVID, she would have been treated differently and would have survived. And in the other case, a healthy male being misdiagnosed. I'm not going to get into details, but being misdiagnosed with one thing and it turned out to be another. And they kept, even though they kept treating the one thing and he was like, it's getting worse, it's not getting better. And they just kept treating the one thing that it wasn't, to the point where he ended up getting an amputation.
Good Lord.
So we are not the ones. Almost everyone I know has a bad doctor story, you know?
Sure. Yeah, the system is broken. When you're running people through these appointments, 5 minutes, that's all you get. You get 5 minutes. Are we done here? Are we done? And it's bad for both sides. It's bad for healthcare. It's good for insurance companies, for sure. But it's bad for the actual players involved. Yeah. And direct primary care is, I think, a much better alternative.
Yeah. So like we were saying before, it does harken back to older, long ago times when it was like a family doctor.
Yeah.
That you all went, and like the whole town sees this family doctor. And it was a more personal experience.
Right.
And they did provide all of that care for you, and you did know each other.
Right.
And you were not pushed through a system as fast and efficiently as possible.
Right. Well, and that family doctor, and I'm thinking back in the 19th century, that family doctor certainly didn't have the expertise that medical doctors have today. Not that's just what they were working with. Okay, that's the education and the expertise that they had at the time. But now we can have the family doctor who gives you an hour-long appointment, who knows your health history, and also has the expertise and everything that we have in modern times. It's what we used to have, but better.
Yeah, Ben and I were talking about our doctor and how different it feels just to be in the office with her. And we were trying to identify, like, what is it? And it was like, well, she's enthusiastic. Okay. She's energetic. Yeah, that's different. And then Ben nailed it. He said, you know what it is? She's not jaded yet.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it felt like. So she's on the younger side. She's not a baby. She couldn't be, to have gone through all the medical training that she has. She got out of medical school, did all of her training that she had to do, and went into went into direct primary care. Didn't go through the alternative.
Yeah.
Get demoralized.
Right.
And seek a different path. This is the path that she chose from the jump. And yeah, she's not jaded. And we're getting better care because of it.
Yeah. That's really nice.
When I was seeing the other doctor and getting care in that totally different way, where you make one appointment for one thing, my list of things that kind of bothered me was pretty long, and I never got to the bottom of it.
Sure.
And so a lot of things just go untouched. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to live with this.
Yeah.
This kind of bothers me sometimes, and I'm just going to live with this. And that isn't really true with my doctor anymore. Like I came in with that whole laundry list of everything that's wrong with my body. And I was like, God, this is pretty bad. I feel very 44 years old right now.
It seems like a lot.
It's trying to be like comprehensive.
Sure.
In case, what if like some of these weird things were related to each other and I just didn't even know?
Right.
And I was like, well, here you go. Warts and all. No, literally, I have a wart. And we tackled it. It was like, you know what? There's only so much you can do at one time. Let's be really realistic. What's most important to you? And so in that whole, what are your health goals?
Yeah.
My answer to that question ended up being, let's tackle this perimenopause. Yeah. It is really bothering me. And so we are. And I've learned a lot working with her, I've learned a lot from my own research. We've done labs. I've also learned that labs and panels aren't that helpful because our hormones change so much, not just through the month, but throughout the day.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so having a baseline, which typically we think baseline, you get a baseline and then you work from there, is not as helpful. So it's a tricky thing to treat.
Yeah.
So we're working with my symptoms more than what my blood work shows.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing. And we're like, I feel like we're working together.
Yeah.
On this.
It's a
Yeah, it is a partnership. And so that's what we chose to tackle first. That's what was most important to me. That was what was bothering me the most. My night sweats and hair loss and mood swings and brain fog and really impactful things that were going on that nobody else had given a fuck about before. And so I am feeling better. I'm taking different medicines now, and we're trying to figure out what's working for me. And also, finally, we're treating my ADHD.
Yeah.
That was a thing I wasn't apparently ready to tackle. And we are. And I don't think it's a coincidence that after I started treating my ADHD with medicine, that I started writing a book.
Yeah.
I think my brain was disorganized.
Yeah.
My executive dysfunction.
Yeah.
And once we were treating my ADHD, a lot of things actually lined up for me and started fitting.
Yeah.
And all of these things that I had just been ignored about before, I'm getting the care that I need and my life is better.
Yeah. It's transformative. It really is.
It's nice to have somebody to care about me.
It is. Yeah. And I think it also takes away some of the mental load for you, because it's not like, okay, so how am I going to figure out how to treat this thing? You can hand that off to someone else or work with them to find a solution instead of just like, oh God, I guess I have to, limp along with this arm that's hanging off my shoulder. I have to get some duct tape or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but like, you don't have to do it all on your own.
Yeah. Well, I had been feeling like I was my own doctor. You do your own research, you diagnose yourself because you had so little time with the other people that you had to go in with a lot of information.
Yeah.
One of the things that, I teared up in an appointment with my doctor when we were talking about the perimenopause, the labs, the questionnaires, all the things. And she stopped and she said, "Hey, I want you to know." She stopped me and she wanted me to hear her say, "You have perimenopause."
Yeah.
And she knows that a lot of women are dismissed. That perimenopause itself is wild. It is a huge basket of a lot of different symptoms, and you can't just take a blood test to say that it's this, and you can't just give it one thing and it is fixed. It is tricky, and there isn't enough research about it, and people don't know enough about it. And she took the time to tell me that I was seen.
Yeah.
And to tell me that it's not all in my head.
Yes.
And what I'm experiencing is impactful and obnoxious.
Yes.
And that she was here to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I teared up.
Yeah, for sure you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because after
finally be seen.
Exactly. After being told, sucks, don't it?
Yeah.
To instead have her sitting with me saying, yeah, this is happening and it sucks. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you for sharing your experience. It's personal to talk about our medical care.
Sure.
So I really appreciate you sharing this
Well, thank you for
and
having me and allowing me to share it.
or requiring you to.
Enabling me. We'll go with enabling. You're an enabler.
Totally. So thank you for sharing. I'm so glad that I told you about direct
Oh my
primary
gosh, yes.
care,
Yeah.
that you were able to find one in your area that's helping you also. I'm so glad both of us were able to find this thing that's making us feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, truly has been just such a big shift, such a change.
Okay, I am going to try to tell you a story now. Okay. So it's time for story time with your gal pal Sal. And this story is about the last time I was in my old doctor's office.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's this big medical facility, parking lot. You check in over there, and there's big halls, and it's just a maze of doors and halls and what have you. And I was there for a persistent cough, which is something that kind of happens to me. And so I was always walking around with a water bottle because I had this persistent cough and was just at any given moment, I might start hacking up a lung. And it was the end of my appointment, and I got my water bottle with me, and I needed to use the restroom. So I went to the bathroom and I shut the door behind me, and I look around in this bathroom. There's no place to put any of your stuff.
Oh, God, I
Right?
hate that.
Right? I mean, so there is a hook on the back of the door for my purse, but my water bottle,
Right.
there's no ledge.
No, there's
Oh
not.
my, never. So here are my options. I'm going to put the water bottle on the back of the toilet. Nasty.
No, thanks.
On the sink, also nasty. On the floor,
Ew.
nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a lot of bad choices. I had like bad options. And I chose to put my water bottle on the trash can.
Huh. Okay. That's
Also a bad choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a trash can that had a lid. Like it was a big, big trash can, like medical.
okay.
Like, are we putting our sharps in here? I don't know. These are all bad choices. So I put my water bottle, my glass water bottle, on this trash
Oh,
can.
girl, no.
I know. Okay. And I use the facilities and I wash my hands and I get my paper towel. And now I need to throw away the paper towel.
Yeah.
In this trash can.
Yeah.
The one with the lid that has my water bottle on it.
Yeah.
And I've got my bag on and like I'm like juggling all these things. And so I decide to lift up the lid.
No.
The water bottle's still on.
Oh my God.
I make good choices. To throw away. And so the water bottle comes crashing down.
Of course it does.
Its glass smashes into a million trillion pieces.
Oh my God.
Water everywhere. Glass, danger all over the floor. I'm like, oh my God, this is why we can't have nice things. And so I need to fix this problem that I made. And so I exit the bathroom. There's water all over the floor. There's glass all over the floor. There's people here. Some child could walk in, lick the floor or something. I don't know. And so I hustle to the front of the office to the receptionist desk. And I stand in line. And the whole time I'm like watching the door of the bathroom so nobody goes in. And I'm just like panicking, just making sure like nobody goes into the bad bathroom. And I'm waiting in line. I find that, I'm next. I get up to the front and I look at the woman and I go, first, I'm sorry. Second, I made a mistake in the bathroom.
Oh God.
And then I heard what I said. And I'm like, I broke a glass. There's glass all over the floor. And I'm like trying to fix this problem that I made. And I was mortified. And I told her where the bathroom was and I left. And I've never gone back to that building. Yes.
Right.
So first, I'm sorry. And second, I made a mistake in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You don't lead with
No, you
that.
don't. No, you don't.
You just probably don't
That's
lead
okay.
with that.
I mean, at least you said something. You could have just left. You could have just walked out.
Oh,
Well,
that hadn't crossed my
the
mind.
worst person than you would have just left.
Okay, neat.
Yeah, cling to that.
Oh my God. Yeah, glass water bottles. They seem like a good idea.
Yeah, no.
This is not the first one we've broken. Okay, so that was story time with the gal pal Sal.
Nice.
And now we are going to do our joy share. So, Emily, would you please tell us something that is bringing you joy?
Okay, so this is not going to sound like a hugely joyful thing because it is born out of three things that are not amazing that are happening right now. But I am choosing to think about these three things as things that are keeping me here in the now, right now. The first is that our dog, our amazing dog, Bo, has cancer. And there's nothing we can do. We have done the surgery, we've done many months worth of chemotherapy, and the cancer came back in the face of all of that. So there's nothing we can do. He's gonna die. And we're gonna have to make that decision of like when is the time. And instead of focusing on that and being sad, and of course I'm sad. We are all sad, right? I am choosing instead to be joyful with the time that we have with him now and to really just enjoy that time with him now. The second thing is that my mom is really having some memory problems and there's no official diagnosis. Is it Alzheimer's? We don't know. Is it a bunch of strokes? We don't know. And there will come a time in the future where she doesn't recognize me, you know? And so what this is a very long goodbye. And obviously that is sad. It is heart-wrenching. And I'm not trying to say that I don't cry about these things, that I'm not sad about these things. I am very much so. But again, I'm choosing to focus on now and focus on the time that I have with her now. And every day is different, you know? And it's like that saying about you never know when the last time is that you tuck your kid in at night, drop them off at school, because they're gonna age out of it, right? They're gonna not want you to give them a kiss goodnight, or they're not gonna want you to take them to the door of their school. They just want to drop off and peace out. So I don't know when the last time is that I'm going to be able to have a lucid conversation with her. That time is coming, but focusing on that relationship the way it is right now, you know, in this day or tomorrow, focusing on that day is really helping instead of focusing on what might come and when it might come, because I think that way lies madness. And then the third thing is insecurity in my job. I work for a nonprofit. I am a kindergarten teacher, but I work for a nonprofit. And nonprofits are tough. It is particularly tough since COVID. Our numbers are down. And we don't know if we're going to exist in a year. I don't know if I'm going to still be a kindergarten teacher in a year. I might not. This wonderful place that I work at might cease to exist. And instead of focusing on that, again, I'm really focusing on the now and on these kids that I have in front of me, these amazing, sometimes infuriating children, and just the incredible work that we do there. And thinking about that instead of thinking about what might come down the pike. And for me, that's a joy because I have a tendency, and I think that you do too, Sally, to worry, right? My husband always says that, you know how Eskimos have 100 words for the word snow, right? I have 100 different words for the word worry. It's not really worry. It's more like a wondering, or I was just ruminating about this thing or whatever it is, right? I have a tendency to worry. And so with these three things, where there is so much unknown and so much out of my control, I am choosing instead to find joy in the now. So that is my joy share.
Wow. You were so smart.
Well, sometimes.
That's wonderful. That's what you're doing is hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am going to try. I want to be like you when I grow up.
You're so sweet.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
My joy share is that tomorrow is my wedding anniversary. 18 years.
Wow. Holy balls. That's a long time.
I know, dude. I know.
Like just yesterday.
Oh my gosh, we looked so young.
I
That was the
know.
most beautiful day of my life.
It was really lovely. It was just a fantastic wedding. 10 out of 10 would highly recommend.
Yeah, it was a wonderful day. It was a wonderful, beautiful fall day.
Yes.
Gorgeous day. So Ben and I are going on a date tonight.
Aww.
And yeah, so this is what we have planned. The soft plan. We'll get something to eat. We'll probably find some mocktails somewhere. But we're going to go shopping for cologne and perfume. So I can pick out a smell for him and he can pick out a smell for
nice. That's cool.
Yeah. And then we're going to go record shopping. And we're going to buy a new record. And I have a new record player. Well, it's not new, but I have a record player that is new to me. And we're going to come home and we're going to learn how to waltz.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what we're going to do.
That's really neat.
Oh. So we're going to learn how to partner dance in the lady lounge.
I love that. I love that.
Okay. Well, we did it. We did a podcast episode.
Yay.
Great.
Yes.
Oh, I know. We're so cool and smart.
Obviously. And good looking. Yeah.
Thanks for being on my podcast for a third time. You're such a great guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so special.
Love sharing you with the world.
Oh, so nice.
Okay, so yeah, this was Chinairs and F-bombs, and I super appreciate the people who are listening right now. Thank you for listening. It means so much to me. And I just got a really nice note from a friend from decades ago telling me how much this podcast means to him. And wow, it's really cool that other people like me doing this because I like doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to share this with people, and it makes my heart happy that it means something to other people too. So I'm glad that people are listening, and I hope people are getting something out of this episode too. I hope other people can find doctors that give a fuck about them and take care of them so that we can live longer, happier lives. Because that's the point. I'm a big believer in preventative care.
Yes.
And please, let's take care of things before they get so out of hand so that we can all live longer and happier. And then we can just sit on our porch swings and drink mocktails in the sun. That's what we want. That's what we want to do.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So thank you for listening, y'allsies. And I will see you next time around on Chin Hairs and F-Bombs, Conversations with Girlfriend.